It's on. Thank you.
Okay, I call to order the Town Board regular board meeting, Roseville, September 7th, 2021. If everybody would rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Pastor Brian Kohout to please lead us in prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we're so grateful that you've given us this town to be a part of. We're grateful for the promises that you give us in Scripture, and even the instructions not to be anxious, but in everything and every situation with prayer and petition and thanksgiving to present our request to you. And so, Lord, I pray for those that are here tonight and have decisions to make that probably they never envisioned coming on this board. And so, Lord, there's many things that we could be anxious about in our own lives and our own families with this town. And so, Lord, I pray that as we come to you tonight, we ask for wisdom that you promised to give. And so, Lord, we thank you for all the promises that you have made to us, and through Jesus Christ, your Son, have fulfilled those things. Lord, we love you, and we're grateful for the breath that's in our lungs even today. And it's your name, Jesus, that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Brian. And Pastor Brian is from the Exchange Church here in Roseville. Thank you for coming out tonight. Appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Yeah. We are missing Michelle, Mayor Pro Tem, tonight. She is out of town. And some of you may have known, she's had a thing with her mother. Her mother's been sick, and she needed some time off. So I think she was able to go out of town and get some rest. So let's keep her in our thoughts, and she'll be back with us next time. So with that, we're going to do something fun here, a citizens recognition. I kind of was looking forward to doing particularly this one. So I would like to take a few minutes to recognize one of our citizens here in Roseville. This is an effort from us on the board to get back engaged with our citizens as we begin once again in-person meetings. This is in recognition to our citizen that helped to keep the small town charm alive. My goal is to attempt to show appreciation for all segments of population. This one is for one of our senior citizens that shows an example of the great neighbor love and friendship in his community, Mr. Jimmy Sanders. Jimmy has served in there you go. Jimmy has served in many ways in Rolesville, including his HOA, 4th of July committee, and other activities. And this is not to recognize the community service that Jimmy has provided, and as much as just as being a good neighbor and for all those that are fortunate to be around him. What is the qualities of a good neighbor? A good neighbors are friendly. Friendly neighbors are welcoming to new residents. Good neighbors are helpful. Helpful neighbors are always there to lend a hand. Good neighbors are trusting. Good neighbors are respectful. Definition of a good neighbor. Good neighbors are considerate, tolerant, understanding of others and their lifestyles, and they help to build successful communities. We can certainly say that Jimmy helps build a successful community in the village at Roseville. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 37 through 39, records Jesus saying, "Thou shalt love their Lord, their God, with all their heart, with all their soul, and with all their mind. This is the first of my great commandment. And the second is like unto it, that shall love their neighbor as their self." So how do you show that? Well, here's a few examples of Jimmy, how he has shown it to his neighbors. He runs errands for some of his neighbors during inclement weather and for those that are sick. He loves to cook, therefore sometimes he cooks extra food and share with his neighbors. Also, he's known to teach young people how to cook. He loves to teach. He takes some of the young people in the neighborhoods fishing, and he teaches them how to fish. He's been known to be a mentor of young married couples in his community. And you would assume they are probably new neighbors to him when he's doing that. He takes this good neighbor, I guess, idea beyond his neighborhood. About once a month, he looks for a senior citizen at the supermarket to pay for the groceries. On occasion, he has helped struggling families by helping them furnish their homes. He's been known to purchase golf balls for the high school, assuming that's Wake Forest High School and not Roseville, but we'll check that out. Rose, good. I have witnessed Jimmy in action firsthand. I was over one of his elderly neighbor's house a couple years ago. He was not doing well. In fact, just been released from the hospital a few days before. This was prior to COVID. I was there, and comes Jimmy. He came right over to help my friend to get up for the day and move around, to get some exercise. A routine commitment for Jimmy. Jimmy has been helping this particular six neighbor off and on for the past 7 years. So Roseville is certainly better off to have more Jimmys. More Jimmy Sanders for sure. Come on up, Jimmy. Come on up to here. I want to take your picture. And while I walk down, if there's anything the board would like to share on Jimmy's behalf, please do so as I walk down here.
So I just want to share, can y'all hear me? A personal story about Jimmy. I see Jimmy often when I'm walking. Sometimes he walks with me to chat about stuff. But I've seen Jimmy personally cut the grass of his neighbors and maintain it. So if you go down Jimmy's street, you'll see his grass looks phenomenal and all his neighbors' grass, and he takes care of all of their grass. So I know that he personally does that. So he does quite a bit in our community. So, and I live in the village too. So thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you. You guys want to get around? This is just a little thank you, Jimmy, for all you do. You're a good neighbor. Thank you for all you do. When will take it off? Take the mask off. All right? Please.
One more.
Good evening, and I really appreciate and thank you all for the award. I will put this above my fireplace where all my other awards are. That's special to me. But quickly, I just want to share who Jimmy Sanders is. I woke up one morning many years ago, and I was confronted with having to raise all my kids myself. And until my last child turned 16, I spent no money on myself. Every dime that I made, I put it aside for emergency for my kids. I worked 3 jobs. Sometime getting home after school, I was about 20 minutes behind my children, but I had to trust God for that. But the most important thing is I struggled as a younger man and didn't have anything, and I struggled hard. What turned my life around is I woke up one morning my wife decided to leave. So I was confronted with being a father and a mother. My conversation to God was, once you bring me through this, I will do everything in my powers to use your blessings that you give me to bless others. And that's why I do what I do. I don't have a need for anything. After struggling for so many years, and sometime you wonder, are you being a good parent? Well, my son gave me a note one day, a card for Father's Day, and it stated, "You are the world's greatest father. I come to you at the last minute, like all of our children do, for something. You never complain, you just deliver it. But not only that, Dad, I know you don't have much, but many neighbors come to you, and I know you have given your last to them. And I have that. He gave that to me at the age of 12, and I still hold that close to my chest. And my daughter gave me a card for Father's Day one day, and she said, "Thank you for everything. Thank you for your advice. Thank you for your voice. Now your voice is becoming my voice because of your teaching on a daily basis." And I like to challenge all of you to do one thing. This is what I did every Thursday. I had a meeting with all my children on the deck out back. And I wanted to know what was going on in their life. And I gave them an opportunity to tell me what they was going to do to fix it. But if they did not have the answer, that's where I came in, support them with how to fix it. But the most important thing about those meetings, I wanted to be the best father that I could. I wanted to be the best parent, you know. So at the end of those meetings, I asked my children one question. As your father and as a parent, what can I do to better myself? The conversation was both ways. It wasn't me giving out, but I allowed them to give back to me. So when we make decisions in life, I found out I don't have all the answers, but I turn to those that are close to me so they can tell me what I need to do to become a better man, a better father, and a better parent. Thank you. There's one other thing. I'm going to be working on 3 other projects coming soon. One is I'll be supporting Terry. Everybody knows Terry. Okay, she's have a nonprofit outreach for mental illness. It's very good. It's very close to my heart because I'm a Vietnam veteran and I have a severe case of PTSD. But I push it to the side by staying busy, and I don't focus on the problems that I struggle with. And because there are so many military personnel and everyday people that struggle with mental illness, I'm going to support her 100% all the way. And I like to ask you all to do the same thing. And I bought some flyers. Mayor, you already have information on what she's doing. So I'm just going to leave some stuff up here for you, the town leaders, and if you want to pass it out to other people, whatever. I don't know how much is in the package, but please support her. Another project that I'm doing is, as a young man, have a great desire to play golf. And starting next year, I will be working with him playing golf. I have a tremendous desire, family-wise, to feed 1 or 2 families every year for Thanksgiving. But I need help. I don't know how to find those families. Someone told me to start with the school. Someone told me to talk with the police officers. But my thing is, if you all know, please reach out to me and let me know families that severely need to be fed on Thanksgiving. And that's been in my heart for a long time. And my grandchildren, which is my heart, and my son, my daughter, they're gonna all be there to support this. So thank you. I'm just gonna leave the packages there.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Thank you,
so
Jim.
much.
Really appreciate it. Thanks, Jimmy. Jimmy is really, when we think about, being a love for our community, he's the model. He's the model for us to strive for, so thanks a lot there. The next agenda item that we have is the agenda itself. So is any additions or changes for the items of business on the, that we consider tonight on the agenda?
I just have one item to be moved. I have a question on the number 9 on the consent agenda, Old Town resurfacing bid approval.
Okay, we can do that.
Thank you.
Any others? All right, can I have a motion for the regular agenda approved?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Not. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Appreciate that. Board liaison reports. Mayor Pro Tem Michelle Medley is not here. I don't know of anything really to report for her. We probably will have maybe a report from committee later on. I do know we want to recognize Frank Pierce for his 41 years of service on the planning board. I think we're trying to get a little plaque for him, hadn't come in yet. So once that happens, we'll get that to him. But really do want to appreciate his service. Commissioner Sutton, Economic Development.
Yes, I do have a couple things. Thank you, Mayor. Roseville Downtown Development Association, formerly known as REDAC. We are in the process, and you've heard me say this before, working on our economic positioning statement and goals. Our meeting didn't quite coincide with this one, but we're meeting tomorrow to finalize things. That is coming up. So at the next meeting, I should have more finalization to share on that, but I'm excited about what's being worked on and what we're going to be doing. Some good stuff coming up. So they are focused, and we'll do that tomorrow at noon. Pretty committed group meeting in the middle of the day. And secondly, I just wanted to share that I went to a conference late August, actually in the Garner community, and I got a chance to meet several developers that actually said they've been watching Roseville. So I'm going to be working with Michael to meet with them. One is a hotel developer, one is office and residential, and another one is a multi-use. They developed a Costco and a Topgolf in Charlotte. So they were very interested in the Roseville community, so we'll be setting up some time just to do an introductory meeting to let them know kind of what we have going on. I'm excited about that. They were really excited, and they shared some really good information about the projects they're doing. And for me, developers that care about the community they're coming in matters to me. I don't want you to just build anything. I want you to care about our community and create quality products. So more to come on that. And then finally, I just wanted to mention that coming up this Saturday, is the Roseville Business Saturday. So support local, support our small businesses. They will be located at our Roseville Farmers Market. And all of you probably know where that's located, right? But just in case you don't, it's right out in front in our parking lot. And they do it every Saturday until October, I believe sometime in October is when it ends. So that will be coming up. So please support local. If you can't make it to the farmers market, which is 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., please just support a small business in Roseville. Let them know that you're a supporter. Also, I just was reminded that Saturday is September 11th, so never forget. That's all I have.
Thank you. Good report. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Next, Commissioner Vilga, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Yeah, our last meeting, we discussed the Parks and Rec bond, and next steps with that. Working on a survey right now to get out to the public. Also discussed ongoing design work for cobblestone and the OSAG, that's Open Space and Greenway survey, is complete. We had that online. So that survey is now complete, so the steering committee will now continue to work on everything we have for that. And to tie in something else to the Parks and Rec, and to make sure it doesn't get to the end of our meeting, I have a slight presentation, real quick, a proposal for the board. I want to pass that out real quick. And what this is about doing something a little bit different for our community, added into our community. Basically, the handout I gave them right now is about pollinators, discussing about bringing in natural plants and everything else into our parks. A third of the food we eat can be directly attributed to the work of pollinators. Pollinators include bees, butterflies, moths, beetles, birds, and other animals. If you flip to the second page, it basically gives you a layout, kind of what a natural garden would look like for pollinators. I apologize for not having this, but it looks like a garden. Bunch of natural flowers, natural plants native to our area. The third is just basically a list of plants that we would look to actually plant. The fourth page is actually from my house. This is actually the life of a monarch butterfly. So the first leaf, it's a little speck you can see on there. It looks like a grain of rice. That's when they are put on the leaf by the monarch butterflies. The caterpillar takes about, I think it was about a week to grow. Then they form their chrysalis. It's the next step. And then the two that are on there were two that we had actually hatch. And then we have about 12 more that we brought in from outside to try to help the population at least. The last page is what I'm actually proposing. This took our sort of cut down logo and added naturally to it. So it'd be naturally Rolesville. So it's a kind of a program. I'd like to do a couple of these programs if we could, but this is the first one in the series. And basically, naturally Rolesville would be anything we could put together that's naturally occurring in Rolesville. So I talked to, let's see here. I talked to the North Carolina Wildlife Federation, and they're willing to come at no charge to identify best native plants and to do a site assessment of our parks and our town-owned properties. And they will actually provide plant material for a volunteer-based event if we can get volunteers together to actually plant stuff out. And I feel like this would also add to the natural part of Rolesville, and it would cut down on us actually having to cut grass and everything everywhere. We would actually, you plant it one time, there's not a lot of maintenance with it. It's a naturally growing garden. So that's what I would like to present to the board for consideration.
Can they identify our birds too?
Yep. I'm sure they could.
That would be cool. I love it.
Anything else, Paul?
That's it.
Thank you, appreciate that, good report. Commissioner Wilson, Public Safety.
We met, but I'm going to save my comments in regard to fire unification when Kelly brings the subject up at,
Okay.
when we get to the regular agenda.
Okay,
Okay.
sounds good. Thank you. Commissioner Sneed, North Carolina League of Municipalities.
I have nothing to report right now.
Very good, very good. Okay, now, public is invited to be heard. And I think Commissioner Wilson, you want to say something first as a public?
I do. And first, for those of you to see me take this on and off, I am a strict believer in the mask mandate, regardless of rumors. But I have an equilibrium imbalance issue in my left inner ear, and when I put this on, it triggers it, and I get woozy. So I put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. But I am fully vaccinated. So I just want you to understand that, especially those who don't know me and those who are watching TV. Now to my comments. Last month, at one of our town board meetings, I made a statement that I now regret. I stated that we are wearing the COVID masks to protect the idiots that have not gotten vaccinated. In hindsight, I believe that I should not have used the word idiots. Regardless of what we believe, we are all brothers and sisters, and we're all children of God. And I should not have said what I said. I want to apologize for my insensitive remarks and poor choice of words. Those who know me know that I am very compassionate about the health and well-being of the citizens of Roseville, and I work hard to keep our EMS and fire department response times at levels below 9 minutes. This is being jeopardized throughout Wake County because of COVID. And once our ambulances get the patients to the hospital, they often have to wait 45 minutes to an hour before being taken off the ambulance stretcher and admitted into the emergency room, and this is because of COVID. I also want to apologize to my fellow commissioners and mayor, April, Paul, Michelle, who's not here, Ronnie, and my sidekick, Sheila, who keeps me straight. You know, I assure you that I would never want to do anything to hurt them. I feel like they're my family. If I caused you any negative publicity and or suffering because of what took place on social media, I apologize, and I'm sorry. With that said, I do believe that the unvaccinated are the reasons that we're still dealing with high hospitalization and death rates due to COVID. In closing, I want to tell you that almost every day, when I say my morning prayers before going to work, I ask God to rid us of COVID. And I believe God answers every prayer. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. And sometimes the answer is not yet. I sincerely believe that at this time, God's answer is not yet. And the reason I believe this is I believe the gift of vaccines to us is truly a gift from God. And some people are yet to realize this. Those are my thoughts and my feelings, and I do not want these board members or mayor hurt or taken advantage of in any way for something that I have said in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, appreciate that. Was any other sign-ups, Ron? Anything come through the website?
Not.
Okay, okay. Come on up, Charles, come up and state your name, address for me, please.
Charles Fulinoy, 100 Watkins Farm Road, Roseville, North Carolina. All right. I came up here to talk about one thing, but Jackie, I agree with almost 99% of what you just said. But anyway, I have a question for the board. I'm not sure. Does Roseville have a noise ordinance for the town?
Sure.
I'm referring to barking dogs. That's what I'm referring to. Is that a yes, no, maybe, or you don't know?
No. David, is something we need to investigate? Do you know if we do or not?
I do not know that we have anything with specificity regarding barking dogs. There are nuisance provisions in the town code that I would need to look into to see whether those things would apply. Perhaps there's a specific instance that we need to have investigated if there is an issue.
Yeah, good question, Charles. If we would follow up with Kelly, and we'll kind of see what we got there.
All right, well, neighbor, and I'm not one of those neighbors that complain about things, but, her dog, his dog, their dog, I've never heard a dog bark constantly, every single day, just about every hour of the day, but to be awakened at 6 in the morning, and I'm retired, I don't have anywhere to go, so I was upset, and I went over there, in my pajamas with a robe on, and I knocked on the door, and they were very understanding, and I said, oh, I'm very sorry, whatnot, so I said, well, because, she barks, and the husband said, yeah, and she barks loud, too. I said, yes, Anthony, she does, but, so that, and then he tells me, well, we have a bark collar, but they don't use it. But then a week later, it starts up again, and then again, and I went over there 3 separate times, on 3 separate occasions, and each time they were very conciliatory, and, but I just, and I don't want to do this, but I just want to know if I do, is that one of my options, and I'm trying to, give it some time, but I'm a light sleeper anyway, and, this stuff shouldn't be something that the board has to deal with at all, but, I'm about at my wit's end, so,
Yeah.
So I just wanted to.
We'll do a
mention
follow-up.
that.
No, I think the board would let Kelly deal with it, so.
Charles, he's the chief on
Yeah.
Roseville. I'll say chief for the lights.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll
Well,
figure
not-
we'll
and I
figure
didn't
out
wanna-
what the options
I
are.
didn't want to get this is something I didn't want to. It shouldn't have to go that route. It
Right.
absolutely shouldn't. I believe I was certified mediator for the federal government, and I believe just talk to the individual. And like I said, I went over there 3 separate times and talked to them. And so. But anyway.
Thanks,
That's
Charles.
it. All right.
Appreciate that. Anybody else? Jim, you want to say something? Come on up.
Yes, I'm concerned about, I'm Jimmy Sanders, 606 Long Medford Drive in the great town of Roseville. I want to say something about Paul's. Talking about the natural flowering and things of that nature. Will that be available to neighbors if they want to get involved for their own personal yards?
So I actually have a certified yard as well, so I can get you information about that too. They do that as well. They,
Okay.
yeah, they have starter kits and everything else to help out with that.
Yeah.
Yep. We could definitely share that with everybody.
Okay, well, once, can you just reach out to me on that when you get everything completed?
Yeah, definitely.
And I agree with you about the dogs. I have a neighbor have 7 dogs, and we can't even sit on our stone wall on my fence. I sit on the stone wall one day, and I leaned up on the fence, and the dog grabbed my hand and bit me through the fence. That was the EMS there, 3 police officers, but the other thing that I'm going to talk to the HOA and see if there is a limit amount of pets one resident can have, because 7 dogs is a lot of dogs. You know, I felt bad because every time my dogs are out, they land on the patio. But, you know, I had two big shepherds. When the dogs come to the fence and start to barking, you know, my shepherd's going to defend his territory. So I end up 2 months ago getting rid of my dogs, and really hurt because I have a neighbor that has 7 dogs, and they just bark nonstop.
Occasionally, I have to deal with residential covenants and HOAs, and usually there is something in the covenants of your neighborhoods that may specify the amount of animals you can have, as well as noise. So
Okay.
that may be a starting point there. And I believe, is it Villages of Roseville where you live?
Yes.
I believe I've got those covenants.
Okay, and I have those covenants too. I'm going to read through them before I reach out to the HOA. So, but in the past, what have happened, and the police officers have much to do without chasing barking dogs. So what has happened in the past that someone called people out, calls the officers out, and I don't call police officer cops. I think that's a cheap word, but I respect them. And they give them a warning, and say if they have to come back, they would write a citation, you know, and
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate that. Okay, next item, consent agenda. I think we got 10 items on the consent agenda there, and we have voted to have number 9 removed, and we will discuss that separately. So items 1 through 8 and number 10, do I hear a motion on those items?
Thought we did that.
Oh,
Which one?
I thought we approved the consent agenda.
we did the
I'm sorry.
regular.
Oh, the regular.
We did.
So moved.
So second?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion from Commissioner Wilson and a second from Commissioner Sutton. Is any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. Thank you, Board. The one item that was removed is Old Town resurfacing bid approval. And I think Commissioner Sutton was asking for more information.
Yeah, I just needed clarity on the process, trying to understand. There was some stuff in there I didn't quite get.
Okay.
Let me pull it up. I had it pulled up. It was part of the, I hope the public can hear me through my mask. I'm trying to keep it on because I was at an event this weekend, and I just want to keep my neighbors around me safe. The process where the actual Withers Ravenel recommended somebody, I didn't quite understand that. Help me understand that process. And is that a normal process that we follow? Is that different for this? Help me just understand that. I didn't quite understand why they would give a recommendation. I didn't understand that.
Yes, ma'am. As our on-call engineer, we use Withers Ravenel to help us with the bid process. Once we receive the bids, they take back and do a bid tabulation. When they put all the bids together, they look at all the costs to make sure they are accurate. They will stamp an engineer stamp, and then they give us a recommendation. In this case, it was the lowest bid was their recommendation. So they're certifying that the bid tabulation is correct, and they agree with the bids that they are doable as they put them in there.
So do they make that recommendation based on just the lowest bidder? Like,
No, ma'am. The lowest, so we'll look at, typically we do look at the lowest bid first is one of the things we do look at. We also will look at references, experience, and natures of depending on the type of project. Is this something that that company can handle?
and how many bids did we get total? Was it
We received 3
3?
bids.
Only 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that normal? It just seems really low.
This job is just a one-street resurfacing job. So it's more of a smaller end job when you're looking at resurfacing projects,
It's
typically for a company.
smaller.
We did have a bid opening, our original bid opening, we only received 2 bids
Yeah, I
by
saw
general
that.
statutes and what we knew the engineer estimate would be. We did not open any bids. We re-advertised out for another 14 days before we opened bids again. We're required to do 10. And once we came, or 7, and once we came back after 14, we did have 3 bids at that opening. And so then we were allowed to award the bid after that.
And are the costs higher than normal?
Our bid,
Overall.
we actually came in under the engineer's estimate.
Right, but I'm saying that cost, the $500,000, is that higher than normal? Is that within a reasonable cost? So if I did this 3 years ago, I'm just thinking pre-COVID.
Yes, ma'am. So when we did our pavement index study, these streets were identified, and so we went ahead and got an engineer's estimate at that point, and I believe that estimate was around $570,000 at that point.
Dollars.
So our costs are still lower than that original engineer estimate. I believe that was in 2019.
19, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And then do we have any grants to help us with this, or do we have street funding money to help us with this?
Right, we'll be using POW bill money for
All
this project.
Powell bill money?
I don't know if it's all, but I believe it's, I have to
That was my other
lean on
question.
Yes, it
Amy's
is.
expertise.
It's all
but
PAL bill.
It all is, okay.
If you recall, we didn't really do anything last year to roll those funds over to this year to help with this project, because we knew it was going to be expensive.
Okay, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Thank you for all those clarifications, I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Any other questions before you sit down? Any other questions from the board? Not hearing any. Thank you, JG.
Thanks, JD.
Motion?
So moved.
All right, we've got a motion from Commissioner Sutton for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Vilga seconds. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any? Thank you. Thank you, board. Appreciate that. Good questions. Now we up to item C, board actions. First one is Main Street Local Administrative Projects Program, which is LAP Grant Project Update. And Kelly, I think, are you going to do that, or is Michael?
Sure, I will start off and then introduce Betsy Watson, who is our engineer of Stantec, who has been the lead engineer on this project. We've come to a point on this project where we are very close to going to bid. I think we've been working on this for over 2 years, and since your adoption of your Main Street project. And if you remember, you received about $5 million in grant funds to do this project. And since our acceptance of that grant, we have been moving from 30% to 90% and now to 100% design and attainment of right-of-way. And also, we also have had a developer who would want to add their part of the project as part of this, which is Walbrook. So now overall, the project's well over $9 million. And so what we want to do is kind of spend a moment tonight to get you caught up as to where we are, where we hope to go on the project over the next 6 months, and then just kind of give you an update on some of the outstanding items that you'll see coming forward. And it ultimately will lead into the next item, which is some budget amendments, which this one is part of that. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Betsy. Betsy?
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, yeah, and we'll just scroll through it. Perfect. Thanks, Michael. All right, good evening. So I'm Betsy Watson with Stantec, as Kelly said, and it's my pleasure to be back before you today to give you a status on the update, an update on the status of our Main Street project. Okay. To kind of recap where we are, the history of this project, in February of 2020, we found out the great news that these projects had been selected for LAP funding. So you may recall that originally it was 2 separate grants, one for the realignment of Burlington Mills Road and another for the improvements to Main Street from Burlington Mills Road northward to Young, including the intersection of Main and Young. So those 2 LAP projects were combined into one project under an agreement between Roseville and NCDOT, and this makes the design and the approval process easier. And then after that, town staff and the developer of Walbrook, Crosland Southeast, made the decision to get all of those proposed improvements folded in and completed under one project. So we had to race a bit to get the developer improvements caught up to the LAP schedule, but it will be a major benefit to the community to have the road disturbed and improved at one time through one project. One milestone we did reach recently was the approval and signing of the environmental document for the project, which is called a categorical exclusion. Okay. So just to remind us what the project limits are, I think you all know, but we are, our project is improvements to Main Street, starting at Jonesville Road, all the way northward to Young, and including the intersection of Main at Young, and of course, the realignment of Burlington Mills Road where it comes into Main Street. And the south end of that, Jonesville to New Burlington Mills Road, is the portion covered and paid for by Crosland Southeast as part of the Walbrook development improvements. Okay, so where we are, our status update on design plans. This is what Kelly alluded to. This has been a big, kind of a long road and a big phase. So we are now in the process of wrapping up the final designs for this combined project and obtaining all agency approvals. So the process has taken longer than anticipated. This is due to a number of factors, mainly involving extensive design complexity and some necessary design iterations in a few areas of the project, just to make sure we get everything right. And the entire design package is actually over 250 plan sheets, believe it or not. So I won't go over all of them, but some of those bullets on the screen, you have roadway plans, signing, pavement marking, how you stripe the bike lanes, transportation management when they're allowed to close lanes, signal design, signals communications, running new fiber, and landscaping plans. So a lot of engineering and extensive coordination has gone into development of these plans. We believe we have an excellent set of plans that's been fully vetted across disciplines, and we're just trying to get it over the finish line. So it's been an intense process, and we're getting closer to final approvals every day. So upcoming milestones, right-of-way acquisition is progressing and just a few settlements remain. We are working on, we have a utility coordinator on our team who's been working closely with utility providers. We've got cost estimates for utility relocation, and that includes cost estimates for streetlights. We anticipate advertisement for construction bids December of this year, which has slid a couple of months from our earlier projection of September when we met a year ago. And again, that's been due mostly to the design process that I just discussed a moment ago. So after the construction bids come in, we go through the process of award, which will acquire approval from the town and NCDOT. And we alluded to that just a moment ago, kind of similar to the resurfacing project, but we'll have to go through that on this project. And by the time the contract is awarded, we expect the contractor to be able to start work in early spring of 2022. And we expect the project to take 2 construction seasons, which puts completion in late fall or basically toward the end of the year of 2023. So now that we've gone over a project recap and kind of a status update, I'd like to update you on some of the design elements that are really going to make this project uniquely Rolesville, and the things that I'm just very excited about, and I hope that you as members of the public are also excited about. So you may recall the public realm is defined as those exterior spaces that are accessible to the public, and we especially have some great opportunities for public spaces at the intersection of Main at Young due to the way the buildings are oriented. So when we met last, when I last gave you an update last fall, we showed you some concepts and some directions we were taking our design based on your feedback and public input. We had put out a public survey that we got great response on, I believe in the realm of 900 responses. So today I want to quickly revisit those concepts and just show you how they're being incorporated into our final design. So the next few slides are kind of taken from what I showed you last October. So we talked about the desire to have flexible outdoor spaces with simple hardscape areas, not too many fixed objects so that you have flexibility for public art markets, maybe farmer's market if you decide to move it from out here, plantings, planters, lighting. We talked about a desire to feature some local materials and possibly pay homage to Rolesville granite and the history of Rolesville, rock in Rolesville. Street trees in strategic locations to provide dappled shade, and benches for comfort and places to take in the surroundings. So indeed, those were some of the concepts we looked at, and now the next few slides show you how those are being incorporated into our design. They're not as pretty because they're cut sheets from the actual design plans that go to the contractor, so they're intended to tell the contractor how to build them. This is where the rubber meets the road. So going back to our pavers, we've selected a product for the pedestrian areas of Main at Young, which is a concrete paver with a granite appearance. So it'll be a very functional product with a good appearance, but more cost-effective than actual granite. Pedestrian lighting, acorn-style lighting. You all are probably aware that Rolesville has two electric providers. Wake Electric serves Main Street south of Storage Drive, and Duke Energy serves Main Street to the north. So both of those companies luckily offer a product that is extremely similar, because we are adding some acorn lighting at strategic areas throughout the project, or acorn-style pedestrian lighting. And we were able to choose a product standard to each of those companies without having to go to something, a special design, which would have cost more money, but we believe they'll be virtually the same. So on the left is the one offered by Wake Electric. So you'll see some like that on the south end of the project. And then on the right are the ones offered by Duke Energy, and the square to the upper right is the one that we've chosen. So you'll see some lights that look like that in the Main at Young intersection. So we're proposing about 12 at that intersection, some along Main Street in front of Main Street Park, along Main Street out in front of here, Southtown Circle. And so that is an element of the project as well. Okay. Street trees. So again, the picture on the left isn't, it's from our design plans, black and white, not as pretty as the photos, but there are some, you don't necessarily need to, I just put a cut sheet to demonstrate that they're being shown on our landscape plans, but the large circles are areas where we're proposing some street trees. And on the picture to the right, it shows you that we're proposing a pretty ingenious style of tree grate, that rather than being the true kind of grate that you can, get your shoes caught in or trip on, there's a style of grate called an invisigrate that allows the paver to come almost right up to the tree trunk. So that photo doesn't represent the type of pavers, it represents the tree grate. So that's just a place where we're, to show you that we're really trying to pay attention to detail. That's going to increase your walkable area, be more friendly toward wheelchairs, strollers, hand carts for deliveries, anything, high heels and things like that. Plantings this is at Main at Young. So plantings behind the curb, we're proposing, let's see, I think this has there's a pointer feature if I recall, and Michael, I have forgotten how to use it. I remember, and I don't have to have it, I can kind of, was there a pointer feature on the mouse that you know?
Right click, maybe? Yeah, and then.
Thank you, I don't use, yeah, laser pointer.
Right.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So I don't use that enough I have forgotten that. I know the Teams pointer and stuff, so I've been using, I don't know about y'all, but I live on Teams these days. So I realize that on the plan, this just looks kind of like blobs, but what they are is actually areas of plantings behind the curb that are going to be at Main at Young. And it's just going to provide some delineation between vehicles and pedestrians without being a hazard to either one, but just some delineation in that space. And we have some pretty, plant palette that our landscape architect has selected for that. And we've selected a style of bench as well for some of the benches in the area. Okay, so median treatments, this is great because this is kind of relevant to actually what Commissioner Vilga was talking about a while ago with native planting, so hopefully you'll really like this. So a year ago with our concepts, we talked about the desire to have some native plants incorporated into our median designs if possible, drought tolerant and hardy perennials, shrubs, small trees, and the possibility of some stones or boulders as well. So we did indeed incorporate those elements. Again, these cut sheets aren't pretty, not expecting you to stare at that in great detail. But what it does show is that our landscape architect has really thoughtfully placed a mixture of native plantings in the medians. And so this is what we hope is just going to really give the public and the community a lot of pride in the area. It's going to look good. And I know you can't see much from that, but this in color shows kind of the plant palette. And it, you can't read them, but in the plans, it shows the actual names of those plants. So I'd kind of be interested to see which of those overlap with what you were showing earlier. And so hopefully this will be, once they're established, the idea is for it to be low maintenance. So we're excited about these kind of things. So lastly, I'll wrap up, but keep it on the pretty slide and just say thank you for your partnership. And as we come through this again, we're trying really hard to get it across the finish line, and we're very close. And so just appreciate, Roseville's partnership on this project. And I am happy to take any questions. And just a caveat, sometimes I have a little trouble hearing. If you're comfortable taking off your mask or using your microphone, if you ask a question, then that will help me out, and I will answer any questions best I can.
I have two questions. One, with the trees, the tree grates going almost all the way up to the tree. What if a tree dies? Do they have to pull up the sidewalk?
Yes, so they would, what's interesting is those tree grates, so that's a good question, because so you can't, I wish you could see it a little better. It's actually, it looks seamless, but there is a seam. So what it is the pavers, you have to cut the pavers to sit inside of the grate. So there is kind of, they get cut and there is a seam. But yes, so they would have to lift up the pavers that are cut to sit inside that grate and then lift the grate out and then uproot the tree.
Okay, I was just wondering if that meant major sidewalk demolition if one of
It
the
shouldn't, it
plants
should just
died.
be that
Okay.
square of grate, I believe.
Okay, okay. And the medians, the ones that are on there now, are there more medians proposed than what we have now on Main Street?
Yes, so,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes, ma'am. Mhm.
All right.
I think my biggest question is going to be the lights of Duke versus
That was
Wake
mine.
Electric, because that's something I would drive through a town and immediately be like, those aren't the same. So
Oh, don't tell me that. We were hoping that most people wouldn't, because it is a more of a cost just to basically either design or have someone design a specialized product.
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah, so I'd like to see something, if we could see something closer together of those two.
I can send, or through via Kelly and Michael, we can send you these, kind of those cut sheets that we put up there.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Paula, you saying you want uniformity? for
Yeah, I'm
all
just-
these?
I'm
I
concerned,
agree
yeah,
with
I'm just worried
Paula. I've seen that too.
What's the level of difference?
There's a little filial, or what do you, on the top of,
The top right,
yeah.
and then these over here, Kelly.
If I could, pointer
Has a finial, and
options,
looks like it has
laser
something around the
pointer.
top. Or below the top.
The black on there.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, there's like a little, I don't know if you call it a finial or filial or kind of detail. These, oddly enough, these on the Wake Electric are extremely similar to what is currently at Main Street Park, but that's on the Duke end. So I don't know if they have changed their product over time.
Could you
They work-
purchase one from one
I was
and give
gonna
it
say,
to
do
the
they
other?
work
and-
together on this?
I have been surprised
They
at
really care if they get the income?
at how convoluted that process is.
Look, Kelly's
You would
looking-
think so.
What was my wording a year and a half, 2 bits?
Yes, you're right, the lighting.
It's tough, they both are universally different and have their own poles and their own styles. And I don't think we were able to find a match between the two, were we?
That's correct. Yeah, it would have to have been a special product.
And that's all they offer on this side, I'm assuming, right? That's the only one that they offer? Or is that the only one that was similar?
The closest, yes, ma'am. Yes. Wake Electric, actually, their product selection is somewhat limited, but they had more than just that one, yes.
And none of the others complemented any of these other ones?
Ma'am?
None of the other ones of
Wake Electric.
Wake Electric complemented any of the other ones of Duke Electric?
Correct. The Wake Electric, on the one on the left, shown on the left, is definitely the closest. And it indeed is almost exactly like the ones at Main Street Park, which, funny enough, are on the Duke end, so. I know.
That is interesting.
I don't know. I don't know the history of that.
On a somewhat related subject, when we start work on that intersection there at Young Street and Main Street, do you know how long that intersection is going to be closed?
Yes, sir. It's going to be closed to vehicular traffic for a maximum of 60 days.
Okay.
And we have done very extensive calculations on the quantity of work in that area, the amount of earthwork, undercut, asphalt, what they're digging up and what they're doing, and have vetted that with people at the NCDOT Contract Time Committee, and they feel comfortable that that can be done in 60 days. Okay. Now, that outside of that 60 days, in the vicinity of that intersection, and indeed on the whole project, there will be operations that involve what we call daily lane closures, where traffic still gets through, but the lane closures are restricted from happening in the weekday peak hours, so they can't close lanes from 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 and 6 in the afternoon. But in the middle of the day, yeah.
That answer that.
Yes, sir.
The reason I'm asking is that a previous fire department board meeting, our planning at, for this, or the board, their board's planning for this, feel that they need to put a fire truck on the northwest side of that intersection because to service the calls in north and west Roseville and out into the ETJ. If we don't do that, we've got to, the fire truck's got to come out, turn right, go down to Prairie Street, turn right, and come around, and then come down Granite Falls Boulevard, which could take 5 to 7 minutes, depending upon traffic. So the question was asked, Kelly, have we approved the municipal parking lot that supposedly is going to go over there where the old town hall was?
So, Betsy, make sure I say this right, but for right now, this project does have a design for a temporary parking lot as part of this project that would be built before the actual closure of the intersection.
On the northwest side?
Yes, and that's where we have already talked to the fire department and agreed that they can go ahead and locate a fire truck there.
Okay.
In your October meeting, when we talk about cobblestone further, I'm going to talk to you about how we might try to make that more of a permanent, as we've already talked about.
Okay.
But yes, we programmed that, build that, so it's open for the furniture store, it's open for business while we have the intersection closed.
Okay.
I think it's scheduled to be one of the first items probably done, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
So with that parking lot, you'll be able to come out on either street,
I think it's just on Main Street, right?
just on North Main?
Yes. So, and what's difficult is in that 60-day closure, there may be different specific things that are going on that may or may not physically prevent emergency movement. So the contractor is going to need to and will be directed to work very closely with the fire department so they know when, because when the intersection is closed 60 days to, you know, my little Nissan Altima or to you and me, it may be that it's physically possible for an emergency vehicle to get across, depending on what they're doing and depending on how badly the road is torn up. So they're just going to have to work very closely together, because at the time period, by that same token, at the time period when the road is most torn up, there may be a consideration of emergency responders in their gear running through those operations to get from the fire station to the truck. So that might be, you know, that's a consideration too. I think they're just going to need to work very closely together. It's definitely a consideration.
Nancy, do we still anticipate that's going to be next summer closure?
Yes, I think it is. We were looking at summer 2022, and we've gone back and forth between allowing the contractor to choose between the summers or specifying that it be summer 2022. I think there's value in letting the contractor choose between the summers unless we have a specific reason to say 2022.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any issues, I guess, from you or the staff or anybody that we we're not aware of?
No, the only issue that, one is that we're a little bit behind schedule, and we're anticipating hopefully DOT approval very soon. Secondarily, we will talk about the budget. There is some budget cost estimates that have come in higher than we anticipated originally, and Betsy's going to stay here when Amy goes through the report. But that hopefully will be partially funded by Campo, as they do have a program to help alleviate some of those cost overruns that we may have on the project. But other than that, the condemnation process that we've talked about and you gave authority to go through is on its way and moving forward. And as Betsy said, most all the other right-of-way acquisitions completed. So we're just kind of putting a fine tune on everything and waiting for DOT approval in many ways, I think, right now, aren't we?
And what's the holdup on their approval?
It's not a specific holdup of any one person or group. It is the finalization of landscape plans, which has just been an iterative process, and roadway and hydraulic plans. And so we still need comments on our what we called 100% design plans for roadway and hydraulics. And we are anticipating that DOT may still have some comments on our design at Main at Young. And that has just been, that area is so constrained with where the buildings are and with the grades that we have to get in order to achieve drainage and make it all work and avoid as many utilities as we can, get the signal pole foundations in, which are very big. So that has really been complex and iterative. So it's not that there's a person at DOT who's not been responsive or he's taken way too long. It's really just a kind of a culmination of several of the design factors and the additional design complexity. But we have good relationships at DOT, and we have been working really closely with them and trying to push it along.
When was Campo expecting approval so they can release their funds?
So the project to meet the schedule that we originally proposed was to be fully authorized and approved by September. So
Yes, submit for construction authorization.
that's
Yep,
right.
to
This
Campo, yep,
cons-
mhm.
So
September
we're going past that now.
September 1?
End of September, middle to end?
30th, mhm.
So we won't meet that?
No.
No, sir, no.
So we've already kept Campo informed on that and told them, keep them informed first on the costs and also on the schedule, and told them that we're going to be at least a month behind that, which means that their board will have to approve an exception, which is typical. They say that's pretty routine. If it gets further than that, then we're starting to talk about, we need to kind of really keep them informed as to why it's getting further along, because they want to make sure that we're trying to hit the window of getting this approved. So we're hoping that October is the date that we can get our federal approval and then have Campo take the action that it's only a 1-month extension and they approve the project. Does that make sense?
Is that going to delay the start?
Well, so Betsy's already gone through the schedule. That schedule includes a little bit of a delayed start that we already had.
Yes, potentially,
Previously.
about a month, mhm.
We have any great fears that DOT will not meet those dates you're thinking they're going to meet? Or?
I don't, it's not, and I don't want to act like I'm, blaming it on DOT that they're holding it up. It's been an iterative process between our design team and DOT, and they've had some comments that we don't disagree with, but our design was also valid. There's just a dozen ways to do it, and they had some different ideas. So it's kind of that collaborative, iterative process. And so the danger is not being done with that by the end of October. I believe that we will. We've been working really closely with them. So by the end of October, to submit to Campo for construction authorization, we have to have those 100% approved plans. And so that's what we realize we will not have by the end of September. So, but we need some other things like right-of-way authorization. We're very close on that. We need the approved environmental document, which we have. So we're ticking off boxes as we go and getting closer.
The signals that are going to be there, can you hear me? because I don't want to take my mask off.
Not real well,
Can you
I
hear me?
apologize.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
talk
thank you.
louder and into the mic.
Thank you, yes.
So the signals that will be on Main Street, will they be censored? Meaning a car drives up and it knows you're there. I cannot stand these signals that are timed. Not that I'm impatient, but the censored ones to me make sense.
They will. They'll all have vehicle actuation in the street. They all have that now. So I hate to tell you that if that's what you were, but.
On Sundays, it doesn't. I sit there and nobody's there but me.
Yeah, signal timing and we could spend another hour. I don't know if you want me to, but that's my background. But signal timing is an interesting concept, and sometimes it's better than others. But I will tell you that as part of this project, we are running new fiber optic cable, and we'll have a state-of-the-art communication system. At the end of the project, either right now, Stantec isn't scoped to do this, but typically DOT would go out there, or if they choose to hire us, or if the town, however that happens, someone will go out there and put a timing plan in to get traffic to progress. And sometimes you have those timing plans, they become obsolete, traffic changes, they don't work as well anymore, and that's what you notice when it seems like it's ignoring you and you're waiting there for nobody. That could be because it's on a timing plan that's just not really been optimized or been looked at in some time.
Long time. I agree. Sundays, I hang out by myself.
That's a great question and an interesting topic.
So what choices do we have in determining who does those timing plans? Is it just DOT the only choice we have, or is there other choices?
DOT owns the signals, so yes, the DOT Division Traffic Office could either do it, and that's a service that Stantec provides for them. So if it's helpful to DOT and to the town for Stantec to go in and do that, then we're happy to. So right now it's not part of our scope, but certainly because we're doing the project, we would be in a position to remind the division that it gets done, that, hey, how can we help, We would be happy to do that.
Are these lights that were up there, are they solar powered? I don't know if I heard that.
You mean the signals or or we're going back to
Actual
pedestrian lighting?
Pedestrian lighting.
No, they'll have conduit run underground and with power provided by those power companies.
Gotcha.
And they're LED.
They're LED, yes, they are all LED.
Is that all they do now? I think that's all they do.
Which they changed them out in our parking lot at the grandpa's.
I agree.
Did the whole building, so it's 25%.
I would just say just keep us all informed of this delay or this approval. We got a deadline. If we missed the first one, we need to make sure we know why and what we can do in the meantime, not to be too late on the second deadline.
We don't want to jeopardize anything.
I agree, I understand. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into item 2, Kelly, ready for item 2?
Sure. And
Amy.
do that.
I thought so.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Give me a moment. I realized as I was sitting there, it would probably be good to be able to see this, except I cannot get rid of the picture. It'd be good to see the budget on the screen as we're talking through. There we go. So I'm going to pull up the website real quick here. But if you have your packets, you go ahead and look at, concentrating on pages 93 and 94. And those pages have a summary of the budget for this project that we've just been hearing about for Main Street LAP grant program. Page 93 is in green font, and it represents the budget associated with the design and acquisition phase of this project. Good, here we go. There we go. So page 93 in the green font, this is design and acquisition. The next page, on page 94, is blue font. It is more relevant to the actual construction phase of the project, okay? So just good to get that big picture in mind. This green part, the design and acquisition, has been completely funded by the town, whereas that blue font, the construction piece, is funded by the town, as well as through that federal LAP grant and funding through the Walbrook developer. So let's start with the green and the design and acquisition side. Let me walk you through this a little bit. The columns going from left to right. The first column shows you the budget for this project that has already been authorized. I believe this about 3 years worth of appropriations, and that's the total of those 3 years. All of these budgets have been approved through a capital project ordinance, right? So unlike an annual budget ordinance, once you appropriate the funds for this project, they stay in place until the project is complete. The second column, it's titled Actual through 6/30 of '21. That's the actual expenditures to date as of June 30th. So you can see from this, in the green side, the budget authorized was $1.2 million, and what has been spent is $1.199. So virtually the entire amount of funding you've allotted for design and construction had been spent as of June 30th.
So we went over some. Is that what that says? The 662?
Yes, if you look at the project as a whole, you're okay. Some of the different pieces of it have gone over. Some of it, as Michael and I have had many conversations, should this be to the corridor piece or should this be to the Burlington Mills realignment? Some of it is just, you know, things could go either way. We just have to make some best estimates based on where they belong.
Gotcha.
Then the third column outlines for you the additional funds that are being requested for this project. And then if those additional funds are approved, that last column shows you what the new budget would be should you approve those appropriations.
So you're asking for $806,500 more?
That is the request to complete the design and acquisition of right-of-way is $806,500.
Of which 540,000 represents condemnation and legal services.
That's correct.
Question. If we gave, what is it, 3 people asking for more money than we want to give them, is that higher than the 340 plus the 200 for legal fees?
The numbers shown,
Yes.
the 340 is the actual number that came from the appraisal.
Okay.
The legal services are just a guess associated with the condemnation process.
Okay. And the amounts that the 3 entities are asking are how much higher than the 340?
I don't think we should talk about that right now, Commissioner Wilson, necessarily.
Okay.
I think those are ongoing negotiations and such.
Okay, okay.
But these are the actual dollars that were, that you have approved for
Right.
authorized
Right.
for condemnation. Therefore, if you approve this, these will now be deposited and be used for the condemnation process from there on out.
And that's the maximum that will be used.
That is the amount that was through the appraisal process.
Right.
Then we go through the condemnation process, which we do not know what that will determine at the conclusion of that.
As far as legal services?
Oh, legal services? I'll let Dave
No, I'm
comment.
saying, are you saying that the 200,000 is not what, you're not sure of what that number will be?
That's
Or
correct.
all of it? The 340 and the 200,000?
$340,000 is the actual dollars that were through the appraisal process that you authorized to file for condemnation.
Gotcha.
$200,000 is the estimate to go through the condemnation process for legal services only.
Gotcha. So my question is that the threshold, 540,000? I guess that's what I'm not clear on.
It depends ultimately on the condemnation result.
It could be less if,
It won't be less. more
I'm not worried
likely.
about it being less. That would be great. I'm worried about it being higher.
You want to explain condemnation again?
Sure. So looking at just those two lines, the 340,000 and the 200,000, the $340,000 have already been spent, if you will. That is, those funds will be deposited with the clerk of court, and they represent the town's estimate of the value of the property that is being taken. That's our estimate that is being deposited. The $200,000 has not been spent. That is a going forward amount allocated for the extra legal services of those multiple lawsuits.
So anticipating.
So one is looking forward
I got
to
you.
200,000, and one is something that has already been established as a starting point. And that is the position that we will defend in court if it goes that far, although we are hopeful that cooler heads will prevail and the legal fees will be less. And I do expect that the condemnation costs will be more in order to reach settlement.
So I got two things on this. One, for the public's knowledge, I would like you to explain condemnation. And two, I would also like to understand, you said for the taking of property, I didn't think we were taking it, but we were utilizing it during the project after which it's returned. Am I misunderstanding that? And can I be heard? Because I can take this off if I can't be heard.
I can hear you.
Did you all hear my questions?
Yes.
I did.
Okay.
So a couple of pieces to that question. So condemnation is the casual term that lawyers would refer to as eminent domain. Eminent domain is the procedure by which we protect property owners from the government taking their property without fair compensation. So that's a constitutional protection under both the U.S. and the North Carolina constitutions, that the government may take your property permanently or temporarily. It's all taking under the law.
Gotcha.
And parties need to be fairly compensated for that action of the government. In a condemnation lawsuit, the topic at hand for the court, or for the court and the jury, is to determine what is the fair compensation. What is that fair, just compensation? Rather than a trial over whether the new Main Street project is a good project. That's a political decision for policymakers to make that has already been made. So the question now is only for how much is a property owner entitled to for the taking of either permanent right-of-way in this case and temporary easements and permanent easements. And we'll find that out over time with discussions, mediation, negotiation, and if those do not bear fruit, with formal litigation in court.
All right. The question that wasn't answered, the condemnation that we're taking, or the easements that that we're taking, they are not temporary for us to do the construction. We're taking those forever on all three of the entities that are under discussion.
You may recall, we had maps that were circulated at the time the condemnation litigation was authorized, and there were different colors for different areas of land. Some of those were temporary easements, some of those were permanent easements, and some of those were fee simple takings of the land as a taking of all of the sticks in the bundle, as a real estate attorney would say. All of those rights are accruing to the North Carolina Department of Transportation.
And again, for clarity for the public, because to me, if I was a citizen listening to this, I wouldn't know what you were talking about. Not how you explained it from legalese. But condemnation of what? What are we taking? What are we borrowing? What are we using? Let's be clear.
So
'cause it's not clear.
what we are taking here is additional right-of-way for the Main Street. They tend to be very small, long strips of land and small squares and rectangles of land for things like stormwater drainage and that sort of thing.
So you're not going to name the properties that we are the properties in question.
If the board would like to discuss the individual pieces of litigation, we should probably do that in closed session.
But we're asking for funds publicly for a condemnation, and we're not revealing to the public what we're talking about. I'm confused.
Certainly, we can identify the properties. I don't have them in front of me, but
Yeah, I think we should do that.
would we do that by address?
Address, business, however it needs to be shared. I think the public should be aware.
And in addition to the condemnation, we have all of the other addresses that have been negotiated without formal legal services. So those were also taken to make the whole project.
So is that in this literature that we're going over somewhere? So if I am a citizen reading this, I will know what you're condemning. Is that clear somewhere? Because me, as just a layperson looking at this, I wouldn't be clear.
To learn what we are condemning, one would have to go to the action that we took previously at a prior meeting that identified exactly the areas that are being taken. That is something that has already occurred. This is merely a budget adjustment to account for those costs as we go forward with the LAP project. This is not authorization for the condemnation. That's already happened.
To answer a question, those are public documents.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would like to find out what meeting that was so we can reference that.
It was?
If we could get that before this section closes, because to me,
And I
that's
can,
not
if
clear.
it'd be helpful, I can give you general areas. Would that be helpful tonight?
No, if I'm looking at this as a citizen and I'm not in the board meeting, I'm not in closed session, and now we're talking about this publicly, I would like to know, what are you talking about condemning? All I'm saying is there a reference that you can give me. That was in the August whatever meeting. You can look at these documents to see what that condemnation involves.
We will
That's what I
certainly
want.
pull that up. And for clarity,
And to be clear, we came out of closed session, and it was a motion including the properties that was made
Right.
publicly that you can go back and view.
Right, but I'm saying referencing it here, like what meeting that was. And we don't have to find it right this second, but I'm saying I think that would be helpful for the public to know what that is instead of trying to dig and hunt and peck for it.
Amy, while they look for that, did you have anything else you want to add?
No, unless there's any additional questions on this sheet, we can move on to the next.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move into the page with the blue font. And again, this represents expenditures or the budget associated with the construction of the project. It's broken into 3 sections now, and this project will have its own accounting fund because of the complexity with the federal grant money, the money from the developer, and now a third component, which is the DOT component in order to build some ADA compliant curb ramps with the project. So because of the complexity and all the funds coming from different places, we will be creating a new fund for this project. So again, just like the other one, the first column is what's currently authorized, which is $9.3 million. The next column shows actual to date, which, since this wasn't authorized till July 1 of 2021, nothing has been spent to date. And then it outlines the additional funds that are being requested for the project, and then what the new updated budget would be should that additional funding be approved. In the LAP project, we note 1.1 million. Significant portion of that has to do with the engineer's update on the cost of the project, as well as some utility relocation and construction, engineering, and inspection. Walbrook, we do see a net decrease there. Again, going back to the engineer's updated construction costs, we're expecting a decrease in the cost of that portion. And then finally, the last section are those DOT ramps I mentioned. And that would bring, if you remember our ADA transition plan you adopted about a year and a few months ago. No, that's right, we're going to do an update on that coming up here soon. The ADA transition plan, we had a company come in and look over our facilities, And we also had DOT had done a review of the state streets in the area to look at our ADA compliance and accessibility for our facilities and our streets. DOT's review noted that there were several, I can't remember the number.
40.
40?
42,
Oh,
I
wow,
saw.
that's
I
good.
thought.
Okay,
I thought,
42.
Where are they going?
42 curb ramps on numerous state streets in the Rolesville area. A good majority of them apparently appear to be associated with the Main Street project, so they're going to knock those out at the same time. DOT is offering 80% of the funding for that, so we just need to make the 20% match.
Oh, good.
All three of these areas total to additional budget requested of $763,000. Overall, between both the additional funds in construction and in design acquisition, we're looking at just over 1.5 million. 1.3 is proposed to come from the general fund balance, a small portion from the street fee fund balance, and then the remainder comes from outside sources. Those outside sources include that DOT 80% match for the curb ramps, and we're also anticipating that 50-50 match from Campo for those additional costs.
Anticipating, but it's not guaranteed. I said anticipating, but not guaranteed. So I got a couple of questions on the top part, the lab project. The $565,000 additional, help me understand where that additional is coming from? It's not clear to me.
I'm sorry,
The $565,000 at the top with the lab project?
Right, that shows on that's the matching revenue side to the additional expenditures, right? So those show the two revenues, 565 of general fund, 565 Campo. That's that 50-50 match. That's the revenue side. The expenditure is down at the bottom, the 330,000, the 500,000, and the 300,000.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw additional funds. Okay, let's go down. So the construction, engineering, and inspection, help me just break down those costs. Utility relocation and streetlights, is that moving the utilities? Did we have a max on that of 250,000? Am I thinking about something else?
Yeah.
That was cobblestone? So this is different? This isn't in conjunction with?
You want to talk about these, Betsy, a little bit? Were these streetlights?
Yeah, let's talk about this money.
The 300,000.
Money.
Come on up, Betsy, if you don't mind.
That's a
Just
lot
to
of
do
money.
the cost estimates.
Yep, so the utility relocations and streetlights really are just that. They're part of the project costs. And so utility relocations, we have a utility coordinator who's working with private utilities such as Ting and the fiber providers, as well as the public utilities. And if, he's not here, and so I don't want to misspeak, he's the expert on this, but my understanding is if a utility provider such as Duke or Wake Electric owns the pole line, they have to be paid to move it. And if someone is just on their pole line, they pay their own cost to relocate it. So that is a project cost.
Gotcha. So what about the other two costs? This cost, to me, this seems really high. I mean, we've doubled our authorized budget. That's a lot of money. If my budget doubles in my household, I'm like, what went wrong?
Right.
I could see you account for maybe a 25%
I'm
overage,
not sure
but,
if it ain't double.
It's not double.
It went from 9.3 to 10.1.
well, I'm looking at this lap project at the top.
Yeah, I was just looking at the total.
Right, but I'm looking up here.
Yeah.
That's 1.1 million estimated or budgeted 6.1 or 6. So I'm a little confused.
Well, I have some general thoughts that may help if I may. So
sure.
maybe not as one of your specific questions, but just overall kind of some scope things that have been added to the project. So one of the things that's noted here is the difference in the current engineer's estimate with the original estimate that was a basis for LAP grant funding. So that was an estimate that we did in the fall of 2019 that we based off very preliminary plans. And while it did have some contingency in there, our current engineer's estimate, or more accurately, an opinion of probable cost, is higher than that. And I think that's what's driving a lot of this. And there were, I kind of put together some bullets of some things that were added to the project since fall of 2019. So those include the addition of sidewalk in front of Expert Auto, was not originally part of the project that we based the LAP grant on. We talked about the incorporation of Walbrook in the ADA project, but those are, the ADA is being matched at 80%, and the developer is paying for the Walbrook improvements. We are resurfacing a segment of road that will become Old Burlington Mills Road. Without a map, it's hard to explain, but it's the section with the skew, like right now where Burlington Mills meets Main and has that big curve. So for some length of road until it gets to the newly realigned road, that was not originally programmed to be resurfaced because we weren't, I think the town's going to take that over eventually, and y'all weren't sure if that would hurt the chances of the LAP grant being approved. But we decided to resurface it as part of this project. It's going to look a lot better because then the new the markings will be really clean. It'll have bike lanes on it, but that was an add.
So let me understand what that is again. Old Burlington Mills Road is the road now or the road that's going to connect to it?
I wonder if I can find a map. Would that be, I don't want to necessarily, I don't want to go on a tangent, no. I mean, I could find it, but I don't want to, is it worth pulling up a map to answer the question?
Old Burlington Mills,
Website, if you want to.
I think what you're trying to describe, Betsy, is Old Burlington Mills is the existing Burlington Mills as we know it
Existing
now.
one, right?
That's
And
right.
And it's already
Yes.
paid. So I'm confused.
Yes, it's existing Burlington Mills Road. So I'm trying to think, I actually know what I can pull up. This is perfect.
I'm saying it's the current Burlington Mills Road, which will then be the old Burlington, is already paved. So I'm trying to understand where the cost difference is.
Yes, ma'am, a resurfacing, so where they come in and mill it out with those, if you've seen in the road that's milled for a couple days before it gets resurfaced, it's really, it's a rough surface where they come in and actually remove pavement so that they can put a fresh layer of pavement on. And then that way you get a very nice, and it's a standard, very commonly done. Here we are, it's this portion of road, and here's where it meets Main Street, but we have an opportunity to have a bike lane turn up this way for folks who are in this bike lane and don't necessarily want to get down to the multi-use path. So, but that's not a very major component of it, but this section will be milled and resurfaced. So that added to the additional engineer's cost estimate.
And that's a median there that you're, is that a median that you're pointing to?
This is just paved. So what happens when this becomes, when the project comes in, this median comes in, so folks will no longer be able to make this left. So you kind of have what remains is extra pavement. So you stripe it out so that folks aren't all over the road, which is not, and kind of making their own lanes. So because you have this major revision to the striping, it is beneficial to mill and resurface that portion. It's just going to be a better final product. So that's, but it is one thing that added fee.
My concern is it a nice to have or a need to have? And you don't have to answer it right now, but that, I have a big question mark on my forehead on that.
Well,
So comparatively, that's not what we did on, when we restriped Granite Falls Boulevard. And I think in retrospect, that was something we should have done. So that's what we didn't do. You see the condition of Granite Falls Boulevard now, where we burned off the striping and we didn't do the overlay.
It's got ruts in it, too.
Right. So this is trying to take care and resolve that, what could be a very similar issue in this section. And make it better than leaving it with ruts and bad striping marks.
I must not be familiar, but we can continue.
okay. The multi-use path, so there's being a proposed multi-use path from Jonesville all the way up to what will become, or to existing Burlington Mills Road. as the grant, in the grant stage, that was kind of, we stubbed it out, if you will, and it was considered a future feature. So in the grant phase, we just had sidewalk and we kind of stubbed it and stopped and didn't continue on. But in conversations with the developer, Crosland, I don't want to misspeak or misquote them, but the team, the town, Stantec and Crosland, realized it would be beneficial and we can go ahead and build this multi-use path as part of this project, which will be a great benefit to the public and to users. And it'll go all the way down to Jonesville, start at Jonesville. Now, this portion is being paid for by the developer. From Jonesville over past what will be Virginia Water, Virginia Water.
So which portion are we adding that added cost?
Great question. From Realign Burlington Mills to Old Burlington Mills. So kind of this area on this sheet that you see here. This is Realign Burlington Mills. So to our project added this piece.
But isn't that the first one you mentioned? No, you said path. You said sidewalk. So that's in front of Expert Auto?
Correct, two
Same
separate
area?
things. Yes, ma'am. And the, exactly, correct, because that in front of Expert Auto is that kind of missing piece of sidewalk. And so when we talk about an addition of sidewalk there, it's not just sidewalk, but you add curb and gutter to get that sidewalk. There's grading that has to be done, moving of dirt. That was one of the, right-of-way acquisition parcels, so that's a fairly significant cost. But again, it's, now that we're building the multi-use path, that segment of sidewalk in front of Expert Auto is all the more important because you have that continuity.
So it is on the same side?
Oh,
As
yes, on the
Expert
same
Auto.
side, but different
Different things.
facilities, yes.
So I think we said along the way that we didn't want any gaps. So this eliminates all the gaps, is that right?
It does indeed, and it's going to be a much better final design. So I'll zooming in here on where this multi-use path will come in and kind of transition to sidewalk. So you see here where it's wider, and then here where it transitions to sidewalk. And then there's going to be a nice pedestrian.
Where's that at?
Oh, this is at current Burlington Mills Road. So this is where Burlington Mills Road comes in.
So when it gets to Expert Auto, it turns into the sidewalk?
Yes, sir.
But the path is on that side too.
And then the bikes can transition to the on-street bike lanes if they wish, the recreational bikers who are on this multi-use path.
Gotcha. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Just a couple other things. That temporary parking lot that we spoke of in the northwest quadrant of Main at Young, in the grant phase, that was programmed to be gravel. And in the design of this project with stakeholder coordination, we realized the importance to probably make that paved. And that way all the, we have a couple accessible spaces in there, but it's also more friendly to users. We have, temporary pedestrian routing where folks can navigate that intersection even when it's closed. So that was a bit of an updated cost.
Isn't that cost covered by cobblestone?
This is just making it a temporary. Then cobblestone's offer to make it even more better than that.
But aren't they covering the cost though?
They're going to pay for an increased level of parking lot. This is only a temporary parking lot. Is this thin asphalt you're proposing?
I would hate to speak to that and get it wrong, but I can check, yep.
But it's not a permanent parking lot.
I think less so than the actual pavement thickness is the other features of the parking lot that would make it temporary. I think in a final, you would really want to make sure it was oriented exactly how you wanted, maybe have some landscaping features. And so this is, we put in a temporary design to maximize the number of spaces and so that it can go in quickly, as we alluded to, before the intersection gets closed.
Gotcha.
DOT actually did, their signals department actually added a requirement to upgrade to an Ethernet system. So that's not a huge cost, but it was some additional fiber and electronics equipment, and it also necessitated the replacement of the controller and cabinet box at the existing intersection at Redford Place and Rogers. So that was, we had a signal upgrade there in the grant application, but it was not as extensive as it will become. So while it was a DOT requirement, I think it is favorable and benefit to upgrade. To your concern, you're going to get the modern equipment in there and have better ability for the coordination of the corridor.
Gotcha.
And those are and then a few odds and ends. We added a new mid-block crossing with a rapid flashing beacon across Main Street in the vicinity of McDonald's. And then street name signs on signal mast arms that we didn't originally account for. And that's mostly it. So those are some things, that kind of add up as the project goes on, but I do think are going to be beneficial to the project and get a good product. And some of the things have come up in the, year and a half of design iterations that we realize will be a benefit to the project. And another thing to keep in mind when we do an engineer's estimate, it's based on bid averages. So the averages of those like items that contractors have bid on for projects in this area and around the state. And those are, the reality will be when the bids come in. And so would be great if it's lower, but one doesn't always know. I've heard different things about contractors are hungry because there's not a lot of projects being let, but you also hear about the cost of materials. So that's kind of an unknown. And so we do our best to provide our estimate to the town who's used that information to come up with a budget request, so.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Amy.
Sure. Any further questions on the LAP project page?
You mentioned something about, and I forgot the word you used, about Camp Oak. So we don't really know if they're going to match it or not, the increase.
We have no definite in writing that they are. We have a high level of confidence in which they've told us that we should accumulate everything and put in, and they have done that in the past on almost all their projects. And in fact, I shouldn't even put this out there, but they have additional funds from the ARP, and they've talked about a different formula possibly. Right. So I feel like we have a high level of confidence of the 50%. We don't have it in writing because we don't have a final project. They asked that we accumulate all the costs to the end, keep them informed, and when we're done, make the request. And that's their preference to do it that way. They won't give us anything in writing until they actually approve it.
What else, Amy?
All right.
We do have an answer to Commissioner Sutton's question about the condemnation. Would you like to make sure we add?
Let's do that.
Okay. So Dave and I found it. It is Dave, go ahead.
It is the July 20th, 2021 meeting. The board adopted 3 resolutions. Each one was moved by Commissioner Wilson and seconded by Commissioner Sutton, and all were adopted unanimously in open session. Those are for 603 South Main Street, Rolesville, property owned by Ahab George Khalil. The second one involves 4 properties owned by Eden's Family LLC. And the final one is 102 South Main Street, and that is Privet Properties. So we have 6 legal actions involving 3 owners. And I'm sure folks know the Eden's Family LLC properties are located closest to the intersection of South Main and Young.
Thank you for that clarification and July 20th being announced. I just like references, because when you're reading a long book, it's nice to have a footnote on where to go. Appreciate it.
Right.
Very good.
There's no more questions on this portion. There are 2 capital project ordinances in your packet on pages 95 and 96. One of those capital project ordinances relates to the budget with the green font, and the other capital project relates to the budget associated with the blue font outlined in your packet. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about in this is budget rollovers. So normally we bring these to you in July We got a little busy this year with our financial software conversion, so we're a little behind schedule. But every year, when the fiscal year ends, as you can imagine, sometimes it's very hard to have reality match exactly to the fiscal year. And so sometimes there are projects or purchases that were planned in the fiscal year, but they're not completed by June 30th. And as we talked about, your annual budget ordinance is just that, it is an annual appropriation, and those funds expire on June 30th of every year. Okay, so what happened is we had projects or purchases ongoing, they were not completed, and the budget authorization ended June 30th. But the projects are still undone. There are purchase orders out there approved and unfulfilled. So what you have here in your agenda packet is a list of those purchase orders that were outstanding on June 30th. Those unspent funds, because they were unspent, went to fund the balance. So what we are requesting is to reappropriate that expenditure using fund balance. I'm sorry, this is on page 90 in your packet. So as I'm sure everybody's aware, one of the issues that's been going on lately is getting sourcing
you said
for materials.
90, is it 98?
I'm sorry, 91. Sorry, I don't have my reading glasses. Yeah, page 91.
Okay.
So we've had a lot of trouble with sourcing materials and a lot of different things, and that's partly what's going on here. Some of it is supply issues, as well as some ongoing projects that have just not been completed. So the request before you is a budget ordinance to reappropriate funding to allow these projects to continue.
And the money is already there, carried over from the previous budget.
Basically, yes, you had it appropriated before, it fell to fund balance, went to savings, and now we're just requesting to reappropriate those funds so we can finish the project.
I don't see any problem with that because it's either we spend it before July 1st or after July 1st. So I'll be glad to make a motion to approve the capital projects ordinance for the Main Street Vision Plan and the ordinance to amend the 2021-2022 fiscal year budget ordinance.
It's actually 3 of them. Did you mention 3 of them?
No, they were wrapped. She said it was wrapped in.
I think
It is plural, capital project
item
ordinances.
2 on the agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, he's saying the numbers are on here.
You need item 2 on the
These,
agenda, right?
Right here.
Is that what you
These
need?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's right, it would be 2 capital project ordinances and
And
then the
one.
annual budget ordinance. I apologize, I didn't write that very clearly.
Yeah, 2021-0-14, 2021-0-15, and 2021-0-16.
Yep.
Second?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Motion made by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Sutton. Is there any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Really good discussion. I mean, I think it's good for us to discuss this before approving and really get understanding of it, but also public get understanding of it too, so.
I think that's
So
crucial.
good discussion on that. Thank you, Amy. You did a really good job of explaining. And I really appreciate you being here because, you was able to show us and tell us that, it won't just because things are more expensive, it's because things we're doing it a better project, basically. And you're getting your signal light, your cables and stuff. So,
I did want to clarify one thing. I heard Betsy mention one of the mast arms at Main and Young. Is there one at Burlington Mills? Or will there be one at the new Burlington Mills? Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yes, the mast arm, so right now, if you can picture the intersection of Jonesville with the middle pole with the
Yep.
middle mast arm, it'll look like that at the Virginia Water, Realign Burlington Mills, and Main Street and Young Street. And
Okay.
then whereas on Rogers and Redford Place, where you have span wire hanging between the middle poles, that will remain.
Yeah.
Why?
And
Why will that remain? That's so awkward.
Speaking of money,
I know money, but can we get one thrown in? You know, buy 3, get 1 free?
I already got this far. But I guess we're not touching those though, right? That's the main thing. They're not moving, they're not really being reworked, anything like that. And also, I think the old Burlington Mills, that's coming out eventually, right?
They are coming out, and unfortunately, there's not, well, those are just wood poles with strings right now. So
Right.
they're coming out, and there's not really an opportunity to, for
Yeah.
salvage or reuse there, but.
No, but at least they're coming out. They're wood poles and stuff.
And just a clarification, so DOT doesn't have any upgraded technology? Because you know on those wires, when there's a windstorm, they go out, right? Because they're swinging in the wind. Just curious.
They do, the mast arms are so much better.
Yes.
And so that's why I know, I think where we have opportunity for the new signals, like New Burlington Mills and Virginia Water, is where we are doing the mast arms, which I think is a great decision on the part of the town, so. We'll have that, yes.
Well, hey, if anyone wants to donate, any citizens out there would like to help pay for a mass storm, we take donations. Just so putting it out there, they say you don't have because you don't ask. Putting it out there.
That's right. Well, good job, board. Thank you. Appreciate that. Kelly, who's doing the fire unification update? Is that coming from you?
I can start if you would, Mayor. Would you like me to start that?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so in the packet, I'm gonna make sure that I asked Mr. Wilson, Ms. Sneed, and Mayor Curran to participate along on this conversation. But over the last 5 months, in the memo I wrote about, is the effort that we've been working on towards a fire unification. This came forward from you, giving us authority to get started on that effort. And there's been about 14 individuals who have met 4 times to talk about this and how it would transition from the Roseville Rural Fire District to the town of Roseville. This was initiated as part of the study that was completed last year and then was expedited a little bit at the start of this year of interest from both bodies to see if this could occur in the near future. So we brought in Greg Grayson from NC Fire Chief Consultant, who's served as a facilitator, probably knows our department, probably knows this region about as well as anybody, and has helped facilitate these conversations. And after 4 meetings, we're kind of turning the corner on some items. The first 4 meetings have all been about education and really relationship and understanding where all the different governing bodies come from on fire services, including Wake County, the Rural Fire District, and the town of Roseville. And what are the implications of unification? Everything from budget to staffing to operations and personnel to facilities. And it's been full 2.5 hours each meeting, I believe. 3 of them were virtual. The last one last week was in person. And at the conclusion of last week, we decided that we've kind of reached this point where we want to or need to move forward on an agreement. And that's kind of the group's recommendation, is to move forward on how we reach an agreement between all the parties towards one common agreement that everybody can agree to. So the purpose tonight is to allow others update you, really as Commissioner Sutton and Commissioner Vilga tonight, if you have any questions about what we've been talking about. You've had hopefully an opportunity to go back to the website. We have a dedicated website on our website under the fire department, where if you wanted to take the time, you saw the minutes of the meetings, you saw the issues we talked about. But I think we're ready now to turn the corner and start talking about this agreement. And so there's really 2 questions tonight. I think we need guidance from you on, as a town board, is do you want to continue towards unification? And if so, are you ready to dedicate some further time with this group that's been working and staff in preparing a unification contract that will lead to something that you hopefully consider in about 60 days. That 60 days is an agreement. Doesn't mean it's going to happen in 60 days. It's an agreement how it's going to happen, including when it's going to happen. So it's my recommendation that the conversation continues, that we do start formally bringing forth and working on an agreement to do this. It's also my recommendation that we continue to meet. We are ready to meet again on September 22nd, 2021, in which one of the conversations we'll be looking at a model agreement that are kind of the elements of what goes in an agreement. And we'll have to kind of start breaking those out and start talking about how to fill those for Roseville. And then also they'll be talking about funding, how we're going to fund this and when. Probably the other piece I wanted to make sure you recognize was that when we talk about the timing and trying to get this accomplished in the next 60 days, included in your packet was a handout that was given out and developed August 10th by the Rural Fire Department Board of Directors, which they listed 24 what they call items of concern. And at the last meeting last week, we went through those and spent time on those to understand those. And there are a couple things in here that will take some time for this group to work through, such as how are we going to fund a potential new station number 2? How are we going to potentially remodel a fire station? How and when are we going to unify? We believe we have most of the answers resolved on how we're going to take on the staffing. We have had a good opportunity to meet with the staff. We've had an opportunity to go through the benefits they have now. We also know that that is some of it's very transferable to be a town employee. We do not have knowledge or understanding. We have knowledge, but we don't have a gain an agreement on how we would do shift work and such. And that's potentially one of the elements in an agreement also. So there's lots of work to be done, but I think we're all ready to keep on going. I don't want to speak for Commissioner Sneed, Mayor Kern, or Commissioner Wilson. I want to make sure they add their perspective on this too, but I think we're ready to continue. I want to make sure you all had a chance to talk it through a little bit more. So maybe I can ask upon Commissioner Sneed to add if there's anything you'd like to add to that.
I think that it is a great idea if we continue forward, especially since the staff has been, had a conversation with some of our staff, and they are very interested, and that is the reason that all of this started, was because of the fire department staff and making sure that they are taken care of. And so at our last meeting, I asked everyone to remember the reasoning behind all of this and to keep the focus on why we started this in the first place.
Commissioner Wilson, would you like to add anything?
I agree with April. We started this because of benefits, to keep our people, their people, who would become our people, from going to other municipalities. I think we have a sense of urgency where some feel like that they will not lose people. When I say some representing the fire department board feel like that we're moving too quickly, that we will not lose the people that I was concerned about losing if we go to 2025. I think we're going to be looking for a happy medium, somewhere in between, but there's something we have definitely, us as a board, we need to look at these concerns. And we especially need to look at the second fire station that's meeting and what kind of financial impact it's going to have on us, even with the cost sharing from Wake County. We've got a lot of moving parts in this. They're complicated. Some of them are, as you look at these issues that they have, you can tell that there's a lot of emotion from the board, from the fire department board, because they've been there for so long and were so involved in the growth of that station. They're hesitant to lose control. So we've just got a lot of work to do, as Kelly said. And again, not to be redundant, but there are so many moving parts where we've just got to, I agree, to move forward.
And can I just add this, the one thing to what I wanted to say is that a part of the focus not only is the employees, but our community, because we are growing so fast. And we do need those first responders that are able to help out. So that is also a huge concern, and why I believe that we need to continue moving forward.
I'm not sure if I can add much more than what has been said. I think I was going to say, and you brought up a good point, April, we are growing fast. Our last census says we're at 9,500 people. What is it going to be like 2 years from now? What is it going to be like 3 years from now? You know, as we've kind of found out with, you know, talking to them, this thing can't happen overnight. I mean, even, you know, they said we was aggressive, but even being aggressive timetable, we was talking about 1.5 years out probably or more. So, you know, we're growing a lot faster than that. So I think Kelly, you mentioned one time about, you know, we got some momentum going. So we really, do we want to lose that momentum? Because it's not going to happen. I mean, if we continue, it's not going to happen next year, or maybe the year after that. It's going to be a while before everything is kind of finalized. So, so from a momentum standpoint, I think it's the right thing to do is continue discussions. We continue to meet with them. I know we've made some progress with Wake County, and I know Amy has learned a lot from the budget standpoint. And I think as you know, as we grow, our budget is getting bigger and bigger and bigger of how to fund the fire department. And you know, at some point in time, it just really makes sense that we figure out how to do this. And I don't know exactly the steps. I think that's what you mentioned is, you know, next thing is we decide step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, on down the line. And it may be 5 years for all those steps take place. I don't know. But I think to stop it now probably would be, as you say, not in best interest of our community in the long run, to stop it and lose momentum. So as long as the fire board is willing to continue, and I think they are from our last meeting, you know, they are willing to continue. So as long, and as you said, some of their urgency may not be as much as they thought it was, you know, a few months ago. So, you know, they may not feel the urgency, but I think they still feel I think they still realize that it has to happen sooner or later. And as long as they're willing to do that, then I think it makes sense for us to, you know, push forward too. But I think you got good representatives with April and Jackie. They've done a good job of representing you folks. April brings up good things about, you know, let's make sure we keep two things, you know, important to everyone. One is the employees and the other one's people. Everything else is secondary when it comes to employees and people. And I think, you know, you guys have good representation on that, but I think it is prudent for Kelly to keep everybody informed, and I think that's kind of what it's doing right now is keeping everybody informed and make sure the board as a majority wants to continue discussions. I know Michelle's not here, but, you know, I think you've talked to her a little bit, Kelly, about, you know, about it. So I guess, you know, you've heard Paul and Sheila. What are y'all's thoughts? Any questions or?
No, I got a question or two. I got a question. Is Greg Grayson still advising us along with this process? Because when I look at this list, the scope has definitely expanded from the first initial, and I know things ebb and flow, I get that. but there's a lot added from when we first began.
What list are you talking about, Sheila?
This in the packet, the items of concern.
Well, I
So
wanna
is Greg
speak for
Grayson
Kelly.
still advising us? Because part of some of the stuff I see as concerns are things he advised kind of against. So I'm a little concerned about that.
Yeah, well,
You concerned about the concerns?
I'm concerned about the concerns.
well,
from the-
and I think that's a shared perspective on some of them, from your,
That's not our concerns, that's their concerns.
Well,
Right,
and
but
that's- yeah, that's
I'm
what-
just going by what Mr. Grayson, who has the experience
Yep.
that we consulted with,
Yeah.
kind of what he gave us going into this
Right.
process, and now some of the things that he really advised against are here. So I'm not opposed to moving forward with talks, but I just, yeah, I don't want to promise someone a $1 million house when we're talking about a $300,000 house.
In our last meeting, I asked, is there a checklist of things that need to be done and in order that things need to be done to move forward? That is very important to me because this could be all over the place. And we went through and talked about they explained every single one of these. And this list to me shows that there's still a lot of work and a lot of discussions that need to be had. So this is their wish list, hope
Thoughts.
list, thoughts on paper. And this is, at this point, that's talking points.
so I think Greg's role is facilitator and getting us to eventual unification. So for instance, at the last meeting, he brought, we asked him to bring an organizational chart, what it would look like for the town of Roseville. He brought that and presented it. The next meeting, as April said, we asked him, is there a model agreement that we can use, a checklist, a model agreement? He said, yes, he'll bring that. So he's going to present that. So
So
he is,
He's continuing with you all?
yes.
That was my
yes,
concern.
yes.
Okay.
He is at every meeting.
Okay, I feel better.
If
All
he's
right.
not there, Sheila, there's no way this can happen.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to understand,
Right,
because
he's
this
there.
scope has kind of morphed. Okay.
Yeah. And there's one other person there, just for total awareness. Wake County has a
Oh, good.
person at the table.
Good.
Because really, Wake County has to support this too.
Yes.
So they have a person at the table too. So it's really a three, I guess, leg stool. You got the town, you got the fire department, and you got Wake County. And then I guess Greg is the seat of the stool, right? He's the one that,
Gotcha.
He's helping build it.
yeah, that's right.
Got it, thank you.
And again, Sheila, this is not the scope, I wouldn't
Gotcha.
say.
Yeah.
This is their recommendations. This is their list
And I guess,
of concerns, I guess.
excuse me, I didn't want to
I'm
interrupt
sorry, I
for
guess
you.
their list of concerns.
Yeah. And Kelly, you may want to expand on this for, Paul's and Sheila's sake. I think it's fair to say Wake County really wants this to continue. They really feel like, the solution is to be a municipality-ran fire department. And their concern is, don't stop it, basically.
I mean, Wake County is taking a strong position. It should happen as soon as possible.
Good, they can build us a station.
They come from perspective
Yeah.
that the county is urbanized
Yeah, I get it,
and therefore, so.
certainly. This county is huge, so I get it.
So my biggest concerns on this is if you're a citizen just following along with this. So you're months back, you're looking at this and it sounded like we're in a major rush. It has to be done because we need to make sure the employees are taken care of, which should be utmost importance. That's what the whole thing's about. We're trying to take care of the employees, make sure they can get whatever they need to get for retirement and everything else. And then it was the town's going to take it over, so therefore it's the town's responsibility for the fire department. Now, if I knew nothing else and was looking through this packet and saw this list, I would see this as a list of demands and not a list of items of concern. So as long as this is items of concern, honestly, and not a list of demands, I'm okay with that.
Well, me being a board member, the way I'm taking it is as a list of concerns. Let's hope.
I think it's all going to be vetted out very soon.
Right. Yeah, and I just, like I said, I just don't want to be, well, if you don't build our fire station, we're done with this. Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. That's not what we were trying to get to anyways.
right.
We were trying to help the employees, and that was the most important part. So as long as that's our best interest and that's what we're doing, then I'm okay with moving ahead with it.
And Paul, you're exactly right. If someone looked at this and didn't have the background that we've got, it would look like a list of demands.
Right.
But it cannot be a list of demands because we will need Wake County's assistance, guidance, and approval when it comes to cost sharing to build a fire station, if and when. And when you look at items 8, 9, 10, and 11, where you're leaving the chief, the assistant chief, the secretary, and the admin, leaving them in place, this comes from people's hearts who've been there for a long time. Well, we're going to need a full-time chief. Greg Grayson's already said that. And Rodney has said he does not want to be a full-time chief. He understands that. And there will come a time when it does fall under us.
Right.
And we will be making the decisions on Kelly's guidance on who to leave in place and how long to leave in place. When it comes to the assistant chief, the secretary, treasurer, as well as admin, as well as the board of directors, because we will be the board once it comes to us. And you're not going to have two boards.
Right.
So
You could have an advisory board, like you could have an advisory board like we have on other stuff,
yes,
but it would
yeah.
ultimately be on us.
So these are their concerns, and this is a wish list, and some are valid, and some will happen, and some will not happen as we go through the process. And they understand that, I'm sure, and we understand that.
I expressed my concerns. I'm good with moving forward. I think you have to continue the conversation because all the things that have been expressed here, we know there's a need.
Well, thank you, appreciate that, board. My last comment is we are trying to keep this very transparent because all the people involved, 2 groups involved, and also, the citizens that want to follow along. So there is a website. We keep all the information. I don't think we post the minutes to the next meeting or something. So
Right, until after they've been reviewed by
so
everybody.
it's like a month delay on posting the minutes and stuff. And I'm pretty sure that org chart would be the next posting the minutes probably. So that'd be, once they are posted, I would say take a look at those and you'll kind of see what Greg recommended on that. But if you haven't visited the website, you just see a piece of what was, in your meeting notice here. It's a lot more interesting things if you visit the website and dig into it, so.
Or call Kelly if you don't want to wait for the notes.
Right.
Let me repeat, or call Kelly if you don't want to wait for the notes.
Right.
He'd be happy to catch you up.
I'm gonna make one other further recommendation that we do schedule this right now for the meeting before Thanksgiving, that work session for another update. I think we need to keep on moving forward. And I'm doing that to the 3 that are participating because I do think it's important to keep going and really try to push for the answers. As we've talked about, nobody does well in uncertainty until there's certainty. And so we need to put some resolution on this now and move forward so we can get understanding what's going to happen in the future. So I think I'm going to put it out there, we should look at the work session in November to come back and give you an update. And hopefully really get into finances and really get into some of the very specifics of an agreement.
All right. Well, thanks, Kelly. Good update. Appreciate that. And you got your direction, I think. You okay with that? Next item is communications, communication from town attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very quickly, you may have seen in the news this past week that the governor signed into law new criminal justice reform legislation that received a fair amount of attention. That new law, which runs about 29 pages, will impact the town in perhaps an unexpected way. You will recall that around budget time for the past few years, we have had on our to-do list revisiting things relating to fines, fees, and sanctions for violations of our town ordinance. I believe actually a few years ago, we put a summer intern on the project to find out what other communities might be doing. It's a complicated topic. It's about finding balance. Buried within the new criminal justice reform legislation was an effort to eliminate the risk of criminalizing poverty. That was identified as a goal by the legislature, and among the targeted ideas was to curtail the power of towns to enforce their ordinances with a Class 3 misdemeanor. That has been the hammer that has long been out there for towns, that if you violate the law of the town, you could be subject to a criminal penalty. That power hangs on, but now requires a town to specifically address it to the provisions of the ordinance to which it applies, and it also eliminates the power to use that criminal sanction for many items relating to the development of property. So essentially, items under 160D can no longer have a criminal penalty. Query whether that has anything to do with criminalizing poverty, but rather related more to protecting folks who might engage in the violation of zoning ordinances. But that is now something that we will not be able to put off, and we'll be coming back to you. I know that Chief Simmons is also obviously taking a look at this legislation for matters that affect the department. Just wanted to put that on your radar.
I wasn't aware there was a criminal component. I knew there were fines, but hey, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So we can't arrest a developer if they come in and do something bad.
Well, as Mayor Curran pointed out, it's a power that towns like ours like to have, but I don't know that we have ever sought criminal penalty. That criminal penalty or the misdemeanor is $500, whereas the civil penalty is defaulted at $50. So we'll need to look at it. Thank you all.
Thank you. Communications from town staff. Anybody got a report tonight?
Good evening, everyone. I guess I'll go first. Just a couple quick things. We're looking forward to that Downtown Development Association meeting tomorrow that Commissioner Sutton mentioned. And I think the timing's right on that. As we heard tonight, the Main Street grant project's gearing up and ready to go. So kind of having this group of focused citizens, concerned citizens that are looking at different ways we can improve Main Street as the project, takes shape and gets underway with construction. It's good timing for both of those to kind of come together. So, regarding the feasibility study or the small area plan to determine the potential for a future commercial corridor south of the 401 bypass, I'm currently working with a selected firm to draft a scope of services and hope to have a proposal and eventually a contract in the coming weeks so we can begin that study. So more to come on that in the next few weeks, in the next month or so. And we'll schedule some time there to have the firm come before the board and kind of present some initial ideas at some point in the next coming months. And just a reminder that at the last regular session, the board did approve the that we could put that the town-owned property, the 6.4 acres for sale. So that has been posted on our website. That is out there. I've received a little bit of interest so far, no formal offers, but I continue to get the word out about that, and maybe if we could sell that soon, it would help with our budget in the next coming years. So, but
Michael, how long does that stay out, the bid request? How long?
indefinitely, I mean, we
okay.
could, yeah, it's out there, and then once we receive that first offer that we feel is reasonable, then that 10-day clock starts where
Gotcha. That's it.
somebody else has a chance to kind of outbid that first bid. So,
I have a question for you.
yes,
The feasibility study for the commercial properties,
yes.
so when they do that study, they'll give suggestions of types of commercial properties that would be best in certain areas? Is that part of their?
Yeah, part of the study will be kind of looking at it from a geographical perspective. What can we actually do out there? What makes sense physically? But then also the market analysis or that highest and best use that might say, well, the market's telling us that a business park's going to work better, be more feasible than an industrial center or things like that.
Okay.
And they'll look at different things like that.
When's that starting?
Beginning to work through the scope of services now. I'm not at liberty to say who yet until we're kind of
That's
under
all right.
contract with somebody, but I'll have more to share.
So tentatively, how long is that going to take?
We're looking at about a 6-month
Okay.
total time frame from start to finish of having something finalized to report the study to present before the board,
Okay, thank you.
give or take a month or so.
Thank you.
Yep. And I'm here for any other questions.
Thank you, Michael.
That's it. All right.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Tell you very briefly, we've been spending last several weeks finishing up the detailed work for the financial statements that ended on June 30th, 2021. It's about done in terms of getting the information together for the auditors. I will tell you preliminarily, it looks like a very favorable year for the town, so it should be a good report that you'll hear from that respect. Probably hear from our auditors probably in November of this year, so we're looking forward to that. Also a heads up, so in your packet for the next meeting, you'll probably see 2 financial reports. One will be the year ending, June 30th, with hopefully some close to final numbers, and then where we are with the current fiscal year as well.
Thank you, Amy.
Good evening again. I'm going to start off with events going on this Saturday. As I think you're all aware, we lost a participant in August. His family has been very active in participating with the town of Rolesville in our programs. And so we have decided to delay all of our games to start the season until next Monday. With this Saturday, we're recognizing David Moffitt and him and his family for everything they've done and to celebrate his life. He loved baseball, and that was something that was really near and dear to him and his brothers. And as I said, they've participated many years in our program. So we're going to start the day. We've reached out, and Roseville Fire Department will be there also. They're going to have the ladder truck with a flag hanging out behind Marvin Perry Field. And being it is 9/11, a day we'll never forget. Also, Wake County First Responders will be doing a reading at 8:46. That's when the first plane hit the tower. So we're going to have that across the PA systems for everyone there. We are anticipating a large crowd for that game. So we're going to honor those victims of 9/11 and remember them and have a moment of silence. And we'll proceed to letting the Moffitt family say a few words as well before the games. And we'll follow that up with a moment of silence for Avon as well. And once we move from that national anthem, we're going to allow Gene and John, his twin older brothers, to throw out the first pitch to start our fall season. So we're excited to be able to help honor Avon and keep his memory going here in Rolesville, as they've been very good to Rolesville. The family has in sponsoring teams and coaching. His uncle and his father are great coaches in our programs, and as you all know, our programs are only strong as our volunteer coaches, and they make our programs very strong. So we really do appreciate them and all their support they've shown us over the years as well. So that kicks off Saturday morning. Then Saturday evening, we'll be showing the original Jumanji movie with Robin Williams. We're going to show that movie. That was already scheduled at Rolesville Middle School. That'll be showtimes roughly around 7:45 at sunset. And then September 25th, we have a rescheduled movie from August that was rained out on September 25th. So those are three big events that we have coming up on the Parks and Recreation side. So I just want to give a lot of credit to our staff and all the preparations that are moving forward for this Saturday. From Parks and Recreation staff to Public Works, they've moved up the portable fence to Marvin Perry Field to help with the crowd so we can help put folks in the outfield, because we're anticipating a large group for this 6- and 7-year-old coach pitch game this Saturday morning. And that game time, we're anticipating the game to start around 9 a.m. and we're asking folks that want to come to be there around no later than 8:40 and in play. So we're there for that, for the start of the honoring the 9/11. So that's some of the stuff we got coming up. And then also, don't forget, October 30th will be our annual Fall Fun Fest. So we've got, I believe, over 70 vendors already for that. So we're bringing that event back after off year. So we're hoping to be able to continue with that. And we're obviously going to provide some social distancing between our vendors as well. So, but we're looking forward to having that event as well as an outdoor event for our residents. So.
I just have a quick question. I appreciate that you all are honoring. I read about honoring the young man. What's his name again? I'm sorry.
Avon
Avon.
Moffett. Yes, ma'am.
So I think that's phenomenal. And thinking about September 11th, to me, that's a community thing. So with that, I was just wondering, with the farmers market and the business, Roseville business, have you kind of coordinated with them to make them aware that we're doing that?
So we have notified all of our participants because of where we are with COVID and the the uptick in cases. We're trying to be respectful of that, and so that's why we're already anticipating a large turnout on Saturday morning. I believe the business starts at 9 a.m., so it could be some flow from after that game for those folks to flow down to that event as well. But it's just something we're just trying to, coincide, work together.
And I was saying coordinating more so with the chamber and with the farmers market, Sherry, just to coordinate so they're aware that that's happening at that time, so people aren't torn between, anyway.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's something we can definitely reach out again to.
Yeah, just so they
I
know.
believe most folks are aware, but we can double check that as well. Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
Great idea, though. Thanks, JG.
Thank you, JG.
Good evening.
Hey, Chief.
Just a couple quick things. One, we are also participating in the events on Saturday morning. We have been in coordination with the chamber and the farmers market, and we plan to participate in some way during that on Saturday morning. And we've also there's a member of the Stonewater community who is big in fundraising, and he really wanted to, with this being the anniversary coming up for 9/11, he wanted to do something for the community, so we're going to be participating in that as well, and that is at 5:30, and they'll have a food truck. I think the fire department is coming out with their flag truck as well. They have a band and a couple other items.
In their neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am. At the pool area. Yes, ma'am. In addition, the date has been set for our postponed National Night Out, so that is September 30th. So if y'all would, please come and join us if you have availability. Love to see you come out. I was pleased to see that all the vendors that we had contacted and some of the other local agencies are still willing to come back, even though we had postponed it. So it should be a good event. We're excited.
Where is it going to be?
Thales Academy?
At Thales.
Yes, ma'am. 5 to 8. Yes, sir.
September 30th.
Yes, sir.
And you got the weather forecast already? For September?
I'm still working on that.
What do you foresee?
Coordinating with JG a little bit and the manager.
Awesome.
That's it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, I think that's the staff. I see, George, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to add to Commissioner Vilga's information on wildlife and, pollinating plants. We about 2 years ago, we idled some row cropping acreage that we had converted all to forest management, and we're allowing, it was depleted land, and we're allowing the pine trees to come up, and also in between the rows, allowing vegetation to come up. What we did in our right-of-way, which we have a right-of-way with Wake Electric, we coordinated with them and we got about between 1 and 2 acres of perennial pollinating plants there, which it helps the footprint, the carbon footprint that's increasing around here. Okay? So it's a good thing you're doing. Hopefully other folks who may have some idle land may follow suit. We did it out of our own volition, our own money, without taking any money from the government. Okay? And it'll stay that way. Thank you. Thank you. It's a good thing you're doing.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Communication from town manager.
Couple things. I think a meeting or two ago, Commissioner Sutton brought up something she wanted to spend some time with myself on, and that was talking about a supplier diversity program, and we met and talked about that. And since then, staff actually participated up in Wake Forest at a vendor event they held. Wake Forest, we were invited and learned a lot of good things. And so Amy and Tam have come back with a lot of good ideas, and we'll be presenting something to Commissioner Sutton soon, in the next probably month or so, and then probably bring back those ideas and program policy elements to you all for your consideration. So that's going forward.
Awesome.
Just a couple personnel updates. Soon you'll be probably seeing some additional people on staff. I know the chief is close to 2 hires of police officers. JG has wrapped up and is moving forward on his program position that was funded in the budget. And this Thursday, we are interviewing 8 assistant town manager candidates for the first round of interviews. Lisa has been coordinating that all. She's not here. She's feeling a little bit underneath the weather, but she's been spending her time working on that and coordinating that. In that group of interview panel is also, we're bringing in Allison Snyder, who's the assistant town manager of Wake Forest to assist. And then ultimately, when we have the group of finalists, we're going to bring in the Raleigh assistant town manager and the Fuquay assistant town manager assist also in those interview process, along with some internal staff. So that's going forward. I'll keep you informed on the progress on that. The last item I want to remind you of in 2 weeks is our work session. Today we met with our consultant who is working on the community center and has some good ideas and has a couple of layouts that we're looking forward to sharing with you. At that meeting, we want to kind of get some guidance from you as to if you have a like in the proposed uses and the sizing, because we're going to take that meeting and start moving forward, and hopefully by the end of the year, have a feasibility report back to you on how to move forward on building that community center that we want in Cobblestone. So that will be an important work session in 2 weeks to talk about the elements and the uses of that community center for you all to kind of determine and think about. Also at that meeting, we're going to have the Walbrook Development and Reimbursement Agreement draft that will talk about their participation in the LAP project that we talked about tonight, and also their development agreement for their project. And then finally, we'll bring back the farm initiative. And so McAdams is here. They are the consultants that worked on the 90% design. They'll come and answer those questions I couldn't answer last work session. And we'll also have the bond counselors, and we'll also have the financial folks here, so you can all talk about that.
This is September 21st?
21st.
I'm not coming.
Get some sleep.
That agenda is really long.
It's a good agenda. It's, you know, to get these things done, we're going to have to do these kind of, but, you know.
You guys want to start early?
We might need to start early.
Love to start early if you like.
What do you think about 6?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Otherwise, we're gonna be at
We'll
a
be here
midnight.
too late. Yeah.
6 o'clock?
Can we
Everybody
get a
agree to that?
reminder, like,
Yeah, we'll do that tomorrow. September 21st, 6 o'clock? That'd be great.
Agree with that,
like
Jack?
that day?
Need some dinner.
Okay.
Need some dinner.
I think we
Please.
interpret better if we don't go too late.
Yeah.
Good.
Earlier
All
than
right.
later.
Thank you. That's a great idea. Thank you. That's all I have.
That was enough.
Okay, that is enough, yeah.
September of 2020.
Exactly. Okay, communication board, April, you got anything you want to add down there?
No.
Paul? Sheila, anything? Jackie? All right. Well, I'll close by saying, good meeting, appreciate all the participation. I think we got a lot accomplished, learned a lot, and decided a lot, so appreciate that. We'll say that from a communication standpoint, if you haven't seen my Roseville Connection series hosted by the Chamber is this Thursday, September the 9th at 7, it says 7 a.m., but it's not 7 a.m., it's 10 a.m. So if you get up that early, you're going to be up by yourself. But it starts at 10 a.m. It's part 2, which I will be asked questions about the town, what's going on, growth, those type things. Pretty interesting, the first one, so if you guys want to tune in, welcome. If you got a question, you'll be able to ask a question because we are taking questions.
So it's live?
It's
Oh.
live, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in and ask questions.
Live on the Chamber, 10 a.m. Thursday morning. And this is an ongoing thing that they've been doing for a while. I think Michael was on there one time, and been some good, had some sports people on there, I think, from the high schools and stuff. And then Thursday night, the 9th, at 7 p.m. will be the first, I would say, call maybe the mayor's show. Rachel and myself is kind of hosting that. We'll have guests on there each month. The first 2 guests is Brad Walker. Y'all may know Brad from Launch Roseville. So he's going to be on there talking about Launch Roseville, how that's going, what the expectations around that is. Should be a pretty good discussion on that. Also, you may remember Brad participated in a new LDO. He was one of the folks that we got on there. So probably talking about the new LDO. Is that benefiting our commercial? That's kind of what we want to do, is make sure it benefits our commercial. So we're talking about the new LDO and his participation in that. And then the second featured guest will be Austin Williams. Some of you may know Austin. He's from Crossland South, and he's doing the Walbrook Mixed Usage Project. So we're going to be talking about his project and what he foresees being there, what's going on. He may make an announcement or 2, I'm not sure, but it'd be nice if he do make a couple announcements on there. But we'll have to kind of wait and see. He may not be ready, but should be interesting. So we'll do a couple feature guests each month. I know we got Keenan Burnham on one of them coming up. We're going to have some interesting folks coming in talking about retirement. That's going to be one that I want to talk about. Some business person in town to kind of talk about that a little bit, about wills and trust. Do you need wills and trust and stuff? So we're going to try to do a bunch of different topics and stuff. We're going to have Terry from the museum come in and talk about history of Rolesville at some point in time. So should be very good. So, we're going to just have featured guests from around town here and kind of have a good discussion. So that's new kickoff. You guys, y'all may have some questions, call in yourself and we'll see if we can figure it out.
I'm calling.
So with that, anybody got anything?
Will we have an update soon from the high school? We haven't heard from them in a while.
They gave us a report that was in the agenda package about a month or so ago.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was pretty long. It was,
I just hadn't seen the principal. That's
yeah,
what I was
she
talking about.
hadn't come since COVA. you know,
She'd be nice
they
to have
are
on the
starting
show.
back. You know, I guess they started back, when did they start back?
Couple weeks ago.
Couple weeks ago.
I know football started back. Yeah, I'll talk to her about coming.
Or have her on the show.
Yeah, yeah. She is one on the list now,
Okay,
you know.
cool.
That's right. Good point. Anybody else? Got anything? Well, good meeting, appreciate everybody. Thank you, Jackie, for your comments, you know, from the heart there, appreciate that. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.